When was this program set up initially, and what was the original purpose of it?
Well, the Ministry of Defense and the Royal Air Force had interaction with UFOs or UAP, as we call them in government, unidentified either aerial or anomalous phenomena. They keep updating the definitions. We'd had some interaction with this from the Second World War onwards, and the so-called Foo Fighters. I mean, the band. I don't. Well, the fans probably know, but I'm not sure most other people do. But the band, the Foo Fighters, was named after this Second World War phenomenon of these strange, sometimes balls of light, sometimes objects that tracked or seemed to keep pace with military aircraft, but never actually engaged them in a hostile sense. And after the war, we thought this was maybe some sort of Nazi secret weapon. After the war, it turned out that German and Japanese pilots had seen the same or similar things and had thought that it was some sort of allied secret weapon. So whatever this phenomenon was. So we'd had that, and then we'd had a few other things over the years, but it was 1953 when the Ministry of Defense sort of set up a formal program to look at this. And over the years, it's been embedded in different parts of the organization, sometimes civilian led, sometimes military led, sometimes intelligence community led, um, sometimes in the Ministry of Defense, sometimes in the Royal Air Force. But essentially, it's done the same thing. It's handled policy on the subject and it's done the investigations. And so from 53 onwards, we had, and it's again, it's been called a number of different things. The media tend to call it UFO program, UFO project, UFO desk, just because that's a sort of does what it says on the tin description. In reality, it has extremely unglamorous names like Secretariat Air Staff 2A. It's just civil service jargon that wouldn't mean anything to anyone outside of the system. Hence UFO project and these colloquialisms. We didn't actually call it that, although I did see the other day the MOD used the phrase UFO desk in Parliament. So these terms stick sometimes. But yeah, over the years, we did this job, this work, um, depending on what was going on at the time. We had somewhere between a couple of hundred sightings, and in some years, I think 750, 800 sightings, which we knew was the tip of the iceberg because a lot of people who see these things don't report because of fear of ridicule and disbelief. And we did our investigations. Most of them we could explain as misidentifications or sensor errors, things like that, and some we couldn't. And that's kind of pretty much where we are.
I'm sure there's a variation of it, but does this program still exist?
It's actually a more complicated question than it sounds. The United States now has a similar program, although at the moment, unlike the job I did, it's not public facing. So it's looking at sightings from military and government and intelligence community personnel and from government contractors, but not from the public. So that's going on in the US, and they call it ARROW, which stands for All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. You can tell that it's bureaucrats running this thing. um, the UK officially, at least, doesn't have a program either. Certainly doesn't have a public-facing one. They say that they don't even have an internal one. I have some information from reliable sources to suggest that that might not be entirely correct, shall we say. I mean, it would be inconceivable to me if our pilots obviously are still seeing these things. We see media stories about that from time to time with the commercial pilots, commercial airline pilots anyway. We know that they're being seen by pilots tracked on radar. The idea that nobody's doing anything with this would stretch credulity beyond breaking point. But if there is a program, they're not telling Parliament, they're not telling the media, and they're certainly not telling the public.